Hello everybody and welcome back to a new video on my YouTube channel. I'm Nicholas and I have something interesting prepared for today and something that I didn't expect I would be doing this week either and is now rather spontaneously happening, and that is react to Until Dawn What Happened by Matt Also, and how did it come to this? Well, I was writing and preparing my news video that will come out this weekend. Yeah, I will be ranking the top 10 moments across Supermassive games. Going to be a great video. You should definitely tune in. And what I was doing there was while script writing, I always already had like jokes or stuff I may want to, cut in. And I wanted to cut in a voice line from Until Dawn from Matt. So I went onto YouTube and put in that line, that quote plus Matt Until Dawn. And this video showed up on my feed and I was like, okay, it's rather recent, nearly 500,000 views, okay. This seems intriguing, maybe this seems like something worth to check out. I made a poll, 70% of over a few hundred votes said, yeah, you should definitely check that out, so here we are. And I must say, I'm unfamiliar with the channel and with the format. What happened, could mean anything basically. So I asked around, and well, I wasn't asked around. I asked someone to tell me around what will be the topic of the video, and apparently it's going to be about how Until Dawn was made, so the production progress. And you guys should know by now that I'm a huge fan of the sort of stuff. Yeah, I was a huge fan of the making of content of Until Dawn, and I must honestly admit actually that even though I love this game so much, I never went much deeper than that making of, right? I never really, went into, try to find out more, something like that, right? I was really satisfied with the making of already. And funnily enough, I also, after recently in the survey saying I would love making of videos like that we had an Until Dawn for the other games, realized, hey, we actually have like 20 to 30 minutes of that for the other games as well. So maybe I will be checking that out sooner or later as well with y'all. We'll see. But yeah, the only thing over the years that I knew or like saw from very old Until Dawn was two screenshots from apparently a prototype. It was that, an old look of Beth and Hannah, and this, a very old Wendigo visual, right? Both from the same video, basically. That's all I knew about this. So, like, all I knew about production Until Dawn, how it looked like before, what we know all nowadays. So, I'm intrigued. Say, let's lean back together and see what happened. Until Dawn. Get unfamiliar with the channel, but this intro is already very. I like it a lot. Okay.
Welcome once again, all you inept teens and youngsters, to another chilling episode of What Happened, the show where.
Not have subtitles, like. Okay.
Matt, you all scream in terror and anger. Why are you covering Until Dawn? That game was so dope. It had serial killers, jump scares, Wendigos, and Freddie Mercury.
So he's asking, like, he's saying, people ask him why he would cover that. So apparently it's a bit of a more negative look, because the game is actually great.
I know, right? It was one of the most well-received horror experiences of the last decade, and really seemed like it had the potential to become the next big Sony franchise. Unfortunately, its long
not necessarily
and protracted development may have contributed to those dreams being dashed, or in this case,
I know it took a long time. Actually, that's what I know too.
Recall that Until Dawn actually started life as a PS triple ballin' exclusive, and also exclusively used the Move controllers. Do any of you non-PS VR fans remember those things?
I've never owned any non-Nintendo console, so
anyway,
I can't really,
on these bones for us to dissect. So grab your flashlights and put on your parkas. It's time to find out what happened.
You really want to tell me that at one point Until Dawn was supposed to look like that? Okay.
Flashlights and put on your parkas. It's time to find out what happened to Until Dawn.
Should have paid more attention in climbing class.
So as mentioned, when Until Dawn was first announced for the PS3 all the way back at Gamescom 2012, it was massively different from what would...
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, so that was without... Okay, so when they announced it for PS3, it seems like they didn't have any, voice actors or anything, or like any particular famous actors in mind, right? Like... Ashley looks nothing like we know her now. Okay, but that's interesting. 2012 was when they first announced it. Again, I like mentioned knew these from these two images, and you just knew that Until Dawn took a long time. Like that it was in production for a very, very long time, and that's generally the Supermassive games are in production very, very long before they get released. Because once again, I think a Man of Medan or like No Little Hope already had like something for the Devil in Me in, which is obviously like Kate is in there in the game mentioned. So it's already like even right now probably we're close to Directive 802, 820. I have to remember the name, but they're probably already working and may be already very, very close to not necessarily completing, but like already on the third game after that, right? It's just how production works. You have several teams that are working at the same time, so.
Eventually release on the
Medan
PS4 in 2015.
Good decision, because visually,
Supermassive games
I'm a bit of a graphic whore, I won't even lie.
Is a pretty standard first-person horror game.
And yeah, it's first person. I was just about to say.
The PlayStation Move, and as such, would feature hand-based puzzle solving, item collecting, and even gunplay. You could also freely roam around each level, investigating scenes at your leisure while using the Move controllers to point your flashlight in.
Wait.
Getting scenes at your leisure while using the Move.
Emily, she has seen some shit, man. I don't know how good you can see.
Control.
Oh, I got it. I got a screenshot that. Wait. Oh, that's beautiful.
To point your flashlight in whatever direction, similar to Wii horror experiences like Silent Hill, Shattered Memories, and of course, the seminal classic, Escape from Bug Island. But before I get ahead of myself, which
that already, oh man,
let's go back.
It is already worth it for just a screenshot alone.
Supermassive Games is credited as the main studio who developed Until Dawn, it wasn't always so. I had a chance to speak with Graham.
Ooh, we're getting some actual background interviews. That's sick. But again, look at how different the cast looks. Again, it's obviously PS3, but like the faces and everything. Can I get it shot again? There. Damn. Damn. Wait, what is he up to? What are they up to? Looking fresh with that.
Always so. I had a chance to speak with Graham Resnick, a horror writer who was hired to co-write Until Dawn's script.
Isn't that
go on to help pen most of their later games. Graham
isn't the one from the making of?
Some information about the origins of Until Dawn and how they go back even further than most realize. I don't actually know too much about the original origins of the game beyond that it was a title with another studio, possibly first party with Sony, before it ended up at Supermassive. But once it got to Supermassive, the only thing it truly shared with the original version, as far as I know, was a very loose concept. Teenagers, lodge/cabin, mountain, horror, which doesn't seem like a lot to go on, but in 2010, 2011 or so, doing a
I've never seen these footages, man.
Something pretty off the beaten path.
Again, I'm so into the behind the scenes stuff actually nowadays. I wasn't really over the years.
Story and set of characters. Digging through footage of the early build that's been floating around out there, and believe me, there's a lot, reveals that at one point,
Sony's I was never really actively looking for it
during the intro, with no sign of Supermassives at all. Said London.
Like, you must imagine the thing is with games like these, right? These very unique niche single player games. You get first really obsessed with them, but you like won't be obsessed with it for every single day of your life, right? There will be points where you then focus on other things, other games, and just which just goes a bit into that's actually something where Reddit really helps me with, because I'm always active on Reddit and Twitter. If I follow a sub to some specific topic, then Reddit will ensure that I won't really forget about the topic because it keeps popping up on my feed, and I get it visualized in front of me basically, right? Like as a kid, as a teenager, when you focus on school, play other games and all that type of stuff, right? Then a game like Until Dawn, you spend a lot of time with it for a moment, and then it just falls a bit into the back of your mind, and then one day there will be the time where you rediscover it, and oh my god, you watch more playthroughs for 2 weeks or stuff like that, right? And then it falls off a little bit again. That's just how it is, right? And that's why I never really went into looking that deep behind the scenes. But wow,
Studio had become specialists in PlayStation accessories, starting with the iToy back on the PS2.
We had such
and they also shipped a huge amount of Move-only games on the PS3, so they, being the original developers, makes total sense. While we don't know exactly why the project was moved around, London Studio had a super packed slate at that time. Dozens of SingStar games, 2 iPads, a PSVR launch title later on, plus the first 3 Wonderbook games, and shipped them all within a single year. Anyways, they were obviously quite busy, so they need someone else to pass the Until Dawn torch to, hence Supermassive Games. Now, you'd be
Didn't Supermassive at this point did Rayman?
Supermassive might not have been the best choice, as up until then, they were best known for various pieces of Little Big Planet DLC, including Sackboy's prehistoric moves, and the 4th Wonderbook game, Walking with Dinosaurs.
Never heard about
these. I just found out existed. So, with that context,
some games you just don't know are a thing.
Such a variety of shipped projects, PlayStation Move experience.
Crazy, imagine they never would have gotten to the studio
via the Wonderbook series. They were
would be nowadays.
On top of that, Graham shared with me why he felt Supermassive were the ones who would do Until Dawn's concept justice. I can say that once I got to know Will Biles and Pete Samuels and many of the other folks at Supermassive, it was very clear why they were the ones to take on this project. They're huge horror fans.
Great music
choice. Dedicated to making it the best video game a horror fan could want. In the 2000s and early 2010s, horror games and movies were pretty dominated by—
No way! A zombie reference in this day and age? Oh man, this is still a game I may want to play on this channel just for fun. Oh man, Zombie U from the Wii U, one of my earliest horror games experiences of my life, man. Because the thing is, you must remember, I only owned Nintendo consoles as a kid and as a teenager, and I also couldn't, like, you know, get stuff on PC because my parents would know. Basically, my Nintendo consoles were mine. Nobody really, you know, touched those or looked into those. And then you had a horror game on the Wii U that you could just get from via the eShop, right? I didn't need to, you know, buy it in the shop or something like that, right? Because as a kid, it was a thing like that back then, right? You wanted to play games you weren't allowed to, so the eShop was a really good station to do so. This is also why I played like the Resident Evil Revelations demo on the 2DS several times, because it was like the only thing I could play at that point without money, you know. But yeah, Zombie U came in, and oh gosh, I don't think I've ever completed it actually. I think I've played like a quarter of the game myself while watching others play the game in full. But that's it. I immediately just resembled the screenshot, man. I gotta play this with y'all together, maybe. I actually already bought Zombie for the PC on Steam. I've never touched it yet either, though. I think that's something I want to do with y'all. It's such a... It's not the best game, 100% not, but I've just spent so much time with it. Because it was one of those very early titles that I could actually, you know, interact with myself.
Games and movies were pretty dominated by action, zombies, etc. It was
again
still a big
someone zombie in there, holy moly.
But at the time, doing something that was not about action would feel like a movie you could play, seemed like a novel concept, and Supermassive was relentlessly passionate about making it work and convincing people it would work, despite a lot of initial skepticism surrounding the project.
The first person is really interesting, though.
Encountered in this early PS3
Must
version was that the first-person setup wasn't as good as directing the player through the story as a fixed camera setup could be. Players could just walk away from characters who were speaking to them, and it wasn't as easy to force players to head in the desired direction. Because of this, Graham told me that the game featured far more quote-unquote nag lines and barks, presumably to help pull the player away from looking at suspicious rocks. Graham also shared that he remembers writing
wait, it was Ashley earlier, huh?
Dialogue
no, it is Emily. Emily looks like Ashley.
Eyes with their flashlight. What's more is that this was Supermassive's first big narrative game, and they were inheriting a work.
But the Sam Tower was already in there, huh?
Graham
They knew what
how
they wanted
this
to do.
resulted in him having to use Excel to organize thousands of lines of dialogue, and that it was such a massive headache for them that Supermassive actually developed their own proprietary tools for their later titles. Although we're not privy to any technical or programming issues the team might have struggled with, and despite the leaked PS3 gameplay looking really solid, there were still some very big changes coming around.
I love though how
frigid
so many
corner.
core scenes and sequences.
What's going on out there?
The team was, of course.
By the end of 2013, Until Dawn was essentially finished, and even though it was scheduled to launch on the PS3 by the end of that year, both...
So look, it really then, you know, was apparently finished for PS3 and in the third person too, you know, instead of the fixed first person. The thing is, like mentioned, I'm actually a big fan of first person horror games, especially in Resident Evil 7 and 8. I think it did a really great job. I think actually that those games were, especially 7, ended up being much scarier because of the first person, in comparison to like Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 3, right? I think first person horror games can really work, but I think this is the type of game and the type of you know, idea that just, I think, really works better in the third person, because it's generally the thing though, right? The scares and all the type of stuff, it doesn't happen within those gameplay moments, because it's like, you know, it's not as important as the ones where we really get the close-ups, and it turns more into a movie where you have to make choices, right? Yeah, it apparently really looked like they wanted to release it like that.
Supermassive and Sony had remained tight-lipped about its progress. This is because there was a big shift happening behind the scenes, but before this shift could be communicated to the public, news got out to several publications that Until Dawn was getting the metaphorical axe and was being cancelled outright. This is because that December, Amazon customer support sent out an email informing early buyers that their pre-orders
it's always the emails,
were
man.
no longer going to be fulfilled.
Something that many
as they had
people
been
aren't
told
even, you know.
It was being canned. Of course, technically, this was actually completely true. The PS3 version of Until Dawn was being cancelled. That said, fans and reporters began jumping to conclusions, and so Supermassive managing director Pete Samuels would pop up to set the record straight. It's clearly not planned to be a 2013 release any longer, and I'm hoping and expecting to be able to say more in the new year, but
I feel like I can already say that this might be one of the most perfect examples of sometimes take 2 more years on a game and maybe release it not only on a better platform but also just polish it longer, because then it will end up being something truly special. I feel like if Until Dawn was released in that state with those visuals for the PS3, I don't know. Like, again, I must admit myself, I'm a bit of a graphic whore, right? I feel like, man, I don't know, who even knows if I would have even gotten to Until Dawn if it wasn't for, you know, because I feel like if the game released like that, who knows if the game would have gotten even an inch of the popularity it received as a PS4. Was it a launch title? Was it a launch title with the PS4?
That's really
I'm not sure right now, actually.
I'm able to say
Again, I'm
right
so
now.
unfamiliar with PlayStation
With all
history.
the money and time already invested, releasing the game as a move-only title on the PS3 in 2014 would have been just as good as killing its cast of 18 to 20-something-year-olds themselves. Evidently,
It just wouldn't
the decision was made to move the entire project over to the PS4,
who needs this type of
as it would
controls, man?
benefit the type of storytelling they were hoping to achieve. We do know this switch was made easier by Guerrilla Games' proprietary internal engine, which functions smoothly on both the PS3 and PS4, as evidenced by footage of the leaked prototype build still having residual Killzone 3 assets. So there's probably a fair chance that Guerrilla, at the very least, provided support in the PS3 to PS4 transplant. It also meant that during this time, the once unnamed internal Guerrilla Games engine turned into Hideo Kojima's tech of choice, Decima. With that said, it's
like if
crazy
anything,
that such a massive amount of footage from the unfinished PS3 build leaked onto the internet. And judging
again,
from
I've
said
not seen it
footage,
yet.
it looked
Good call.
great and seemed to perform quite smoothly.
I mean,
therefore, it's fair to assume that the Switch was made for marketing
seriously, alone going from this
smoothly. Therefore, it
to this, come on, alone that was worth the 2 year. Man, I've been simming too much for Sam recently again, I'm sorry. But yeah, what I wanted to say is that, if anything, if the game would have released like that, visually in 2013, then it would have 100% gotten a remake at one point. I'm 100% sure that any company then would have said, going down the road, maybe, you know, where they see like, hey, the story's actually pretty great. Let's give it a visual, you know, visual overtune and bring it back to bigger audiences on a bigger console.
It's fair to assume that the Switch was made for marketing reasons rather than debilitating tech problems. Graham corroborated this for me when I asked if this was the case. Correct, unless there's more to the story than I'm aware, this has always been my understanding. It feels a little weird to see it listed sometimes as a cancelled game when really it just had a midstream metamorphosis. work never properly stopped on it or anything. The PS4 technology made it possible in a way that felt much more in line with Until Dawn's concept. So it was reworked in
That's
every
weird though,
way
then why
that could
didn't they
take
announce it
advantage
though
of
like that?
With the big delay, this meant Supermassive
It
can
just
now
should've-
take the time to see
Yeah.
what it could improve in the switch to the PS4.
Exactly.
With the biggest one being the game's perspective. I think there were two main things that shifted the
Why didn't they make
narrative in
it
that
just a big
regard and
announcement
drove
saying,
the
yeah,
redesign,
it's
moving
no
away
longer
from
released
first
for the-
person
or was the
into fixed
PS4
camera
not
angles, which
announced at
allowed
that
the
point?
narrative to be told through shots and
I gotta check
edits,
that way.
which is much more cinematic than the free roam first person, and the high resolution facial capture, which allowed Larry and I as writers to express ideas and
that alone,
thoughts
like mentioned the
exactly how
faces,
we
man.
would in a
Imagine
movie,
Until
by
Dawn
letting
without the
the
face
actors'
quality.
performances do the heavy lifting that only they can do. I also asked Graham about something every studio and game developer knows all too well, the dusty regrets of the cutting room floor. Between all the different builds of the game, the hundreds upon hundreds of pages of dialogue,
February
and the
2013.
development
Okay,
console
so-
swapping, some
Yeah, no idea why they then just did say, you know what? We won't be reason to, we've made a decision with Sony that instead of releasing this now and the state it is right now for the PlayStation 3 this year, we want to take the time and release it with the PS4 when it comes out one day, because at that point it was announced already, right? To just give the player a better looking and better working experience of our title. Why didn't they just do that? Why was there an official announcement but like not mentioned here, or just way too late? When was it released? Actually a year later. It came a year later actually. Okay. Yeah, it was not a launch title.
things had to be dropped or simplified. One such element that Graham was sad to see go was the game's 3D TV support, a feature that Sony had been pushing hard near the twilight years of the PS3, and a feature
Seriously,
that they dropped
the
just
type of
as
features
hard when
like-
the 3D TV bubble burst.
Yeah.
In terms of content,
Type of
one
technology
big change
stuff you
was the
just don't need,
opening
man.
scene, which focused on Hannah and Beth. It was originally much longer
Yeah,
and
that's
more
what I saw.
drawn out, but they felt ultimately that it hurt the pacing of the game a bit, so the sequence was cut
Would it?
down to the bare essentials.
Prudhoe,
Ashley,
yeah,
one of
you
the
know.
more inquisitive and serious characters seen in the final version, also started out as pretty much an entirely different person. In the PS3 version of the game, Ashley was an overly anxious, workaholic pill popper who had a vivid, nearly split personality persona straight out of Agatha Christie named Mrs. Merriweather, who she
Isn't
would
she that
recede
still
into
to some
under
point?
duress. Ashley would of course lose the split personality during the subsequent rewrites, though Graham also explained that in general, many of the characters who were a bit too over the top were adjusted to make for a more grounded cast.
But like that's the thing I've actually talked about during my Until Dawn character ranking video, how Ashley, not necessarily split personality, but she definitely had the most split path to go, like in choices. Because the thing is, as I there explained, as example, you could have her be like very resentful, like wait, is resentful the right word? Like very sorry about what happened with Hannah and Beth and blame herself and all that stuff, or you can make her go really, it's their fault and it's not me, it's them, and you know they did this themselves and stuff like that, right? That in some way there was still the split personality, but not necessarily as a core character design, but instead like an opportunity for the player to either play it this way or play it this way. So I feel like that element is still kind of there, but again, I guess they would have shown a split personality actually on screen outside of your choices. So I guess that's what they mean.
Well, as grounded as these characters could be.
Hashtag there's a freaking ghost after us. Crack a dictionary much, biatch?
Looky. Who's gonna fire up some nookie?
The good old teeny lines.
Speaking of characters, when the game moved over to the PS4, performance capture was making massive strides in producing even more nuance and believability within the medium.
Yeah, and imagine
wanting to
we wouldn't
leverage
have done
further,
that.
Much of the PS3 cast was replaced with actors who fans might better recognize. Brett Dalton of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Until Dawn fame was one of the few that were retained during the switch. In an interview with Comic Find, he remembers the experience rather fondly and recalls a particularly intense audition process. The story with that is that they held legit auditions. It wasn't just a voiceover thing. You were actually using the space, all of that stuff. They were
Wait,
throwing
so Mike
things
was
at you
actually,
during
like, the actor was,
audition.
Brendan Dalton was
I wanna
actually
say it
already in the
throwing
PS3 version?
ideas, but I felt
Did I understand
like
it correctly?
maybe I'm
Like, his
just
character actually looked the
misremembering
most
this, but
resembling,
I think
so
they actually
I guess that
did
makes
throw
sense.
things. Maybe it was just ideas, like, oh, there's a deer head now, coming at you. When I asked Graham about this, he said, chuckling, "I cannot confirm or deny that any deerheads, living or dead, were thrown at the actors." When Until Dawn was finally re-unveiled to the public, the glow-up to the
Sam, there's so
PS4
much space
was,
in that
needless
top.
to say, rather stunning. The extra 2 years of development, overhauling
Gotta
the
stop,
facial
I'm sorry.
capture, the graphical fidelity, and
I
the
still got it
cinematic
in to tell this
presentation
video.
really helped it stand out in an era where Telltale was still the standard for choice-based narrative games. It also didn't hurt that it no longer required players to buy a set of Move controllers.
Who
to play
needs
it.
this, man?
Just
Seriously.
a new console, which is somehow
What's
still
them trying
a
to,
better deal. When it was
you know,
released in August of
try
2015,
to
reviews were
catch up
pretty
with the
positive,
Wii stuff.
maintaining a 79 average on Metacritic with over 100 reviews, in addition to an even higher user score, with the only negatives being Emily. Fans
Come
really got
on.
into the story and characters, and
Yeah.
the well-executed twists and turns really elevated the experience for many. Very quickly, Until Dawn found an unexpected, almost viral popularity on both Twitch and YouTube, despite being positioned as more of a mid-tier summer release.
Exactly,
It
that's the
seemed
thing,
at
right?
that time, like Supermassive and Sony had an absolute hit on their hands. The game would place 7th in the August NPD charts, with Sony's then president Shuhei Yoshida proclaiming it a sleeper hit, while Supermassive's own Pete Samuels said it surpassed their expectations. Although specific, credible worldwide sales data for Until Dawn isn't really available, it seemed both publisher and developer were satisfied with its performance, but it is curious that there was never any braggy press releases or tweets trumpeting its success.
Not needed, right?
Sony and Supermassive continued to work together on a number of titles, like Hidden Agenda, which was probably
Never
the most
really gotten
interesting
into that.
game in Sony's ill-fated PlayLink program, and 3 all-new VR games, the less-than-ideal Bravo team, the well-received rail shooter Until Dawn Rush of Blood, and the less-than-well-received The Inpatient. Bravo team staff
All these
would
VR
eventually
things
speak
and off
out
things
in a
I've
Eurogamer
never really gotten
article
into those,
about how
actually.
Until Dawn's success had the studio management suddenly imposing all sorts of arbitrary changes for the game in order to chase the so-called Hollywood realism that had brought them success with Until Dawn. Beyond that, there's a rumor that Supermassive were recently working on a Killzone VR game, but that Sony handed the game off to another studio
Again,
due to
VR games and
dissatisfaction
stuff like
with the
that,
project.
I really
And
don't care. I'm sorry.
That's pretty much it for Supermassive and Sony's partnership.
Yeah, because
Namco
after
Bandai,
that,
meanwhile, proceeded to repeat their legally distinct successor series to a surprising Sony hit title by signing Supermassive over to a lucrative 8-game contract for the Dark Pictures anthology.
Hell yeah.
Outside of that, the studio would also find the
I didn't
time
know it's
to
an
make the
8-game deal,
smaller-scale
though.
Shattered State, as
Surely
well as
will
the
be,
even
you know.
closer to Until Dawn horror title, The Quarry.
Wait, though.
As
Yeah,
for
it's
why
definitely more
Sony
ready.
never saw fit to release
Got the
a
4
more
TPA
traditional
games, the
Until Dawn
Quarry,
sequel,
already have
well,
5
Graham
titles
chimes
copyrighted
in once more.
for the future,
I don't
so
have all
yeah.
the details on the ins and outs, but I think the game did very well,
Yeah.
well enough to get those spin-offs greenlit at least. Lack of a literal Until Dawn 2 could be for a variety of reasons, but it's Sony's IP, so in the end, it's not something Supermassive could
Exactly.
control.
Now-
As for the future of Until Dawn, well, recent rumors have swirled about a possible remake of
I
the
heard
game,
that,
but
actually.
otherwise, we don't really know anything concrete. That said, Supermassive is still absolutely in the business of providing fans with what they've come to expect, and while
yeah.
their newer horror titles haven't quite hit the same highs as the original Until Dawn did in 2015, the studio's love for the genre obviously managed to stay alive. Graham Resnick, meanwhile, looks back on the last decade of working on horror games extremely warmly, saying, "There is literally nothing better to me as a writer than knowing that there are people out there who quote/meme the insane stuff I made
Daily.
late at night on a drunk Skype session with Larry, or put Jesus
like
hot sauce
Christmas
Christmas cake on a t-shirt, or
Climbing class, yeah.
class, or peanut
Pop,
butter,
peanut butter
pops.
pops.
It's truly bananas.
It's
and
wonderful,
really
man.
does make spending millions of hours of my life writing 5,000 to 10,000 pages of hot nonsense per game.
These are the things,
totally
right,
and
that make all the
completely
work
worth
you
it.
do
Thanks
worth it.
again
Little things
so
like
much,
these.
Graham, for taking the time to talk to me about Until
Just
Dawn.
like for me,
And if you out there know of any
2
other
for YouTube
games or
comments, you know,
movies you'd like me
can
to
make
slash
the hours
up
I did into a
next,
video
let me
feel
know in the
very worth
comments
it, you know.
below, or
Such
brave
a
the dank
lovely
mountain
feeling.
cave that is my Twitter. See you next time, and thanks for watching.
Hey! this was a very intriguing video, man. I gotta check out more, I think. Not sure if I will react to more, but this format, I like it a lot. Hey, definitely gotta subscribe straight away. Medan Muscles, that was an insanely entertaining video, man. Good freaking job. That was really fun. Okay. Now, a few more things at the end. I already talked a bit midway through, right? But, like, first of all, again, I didn't know that the game was, like, this far finished already. I, again, like mentioned, knew that a lot of work went into it, or that it was already, like, worked on for a long time, and I could have guessed that it then, you know, later on was worked to work as a PS4 title, but, like, that the game was basically literally finished already. 1 point for the PS3. That's crazy. And like mentioned, outside of these two pictures that I showed earlier, I really didn't know so much footage was out there. Okay, because again, I didn't really look for it, right? Maybe over the years it could have once been recounted to me and I didn't even notice it. I literally can't remember. But like this section at the end, once again, that was really cool. Where we then got to when Until Dawn then actually released, because that's the thing, right? Sony, obviously big studio, big publisher, so they release this horror game and everybody thinks, okay, it's a one-off, it's just a cool fun horror game coming in there, you know, maybe people will like it, and then it just becomes so wildly popular and is so positively received from basically everybody that it did so good that it literally secured us this franchise, right? Who knows what would have been if, you know, if the game was not, first of all, handed over to Supermassive, who knows if it would have gotten ever released. Who knows if, can I get, by the way, get a picture again?
Until Dawn.
Who knows if Until Dawn wasn't successful, if we would have ever gotten the Dark Pages anthology, right? Like, the success of this game and the decision to push it to the PS4, I think, were so decisive. I really think, honestly, that if the game would have released like that for the PS3, especially like so short before the PS4 released, I really don't think it would have done even like that much as well as it did nowadays. Again, Until Dawn became one of these niche standalone titles, you know, outside of a franchise at that point, that just came in and just blew people away. The idea, the execution, the characters, the story, the visuals, you know, everything just worked out so perfectly. And again, the game is not flawless, you know, we will be talking about that soon as well, or like generally when I finally get to doing the full game overview videos, right? That's why we've always focused like on specific things from the game, so like the game as an entire thing, right? Even though Until Dawn remains my favorite horror game of all time, it's far from 100% perfect, right? So these are definitely things that we'll be talking about. So even though the game wasn't 100% perfect on release, it just still managed to excite so many people, you know, just like it did with me. You know, it was just some teenager from Germany, and they just love watching people play this game. And to this day, that's the craziest part still. I've never played this game. I've never played this game, yet it's still my absolute favorite of all time. That's insane. Actually, I wouldn't necessarily say favorite overall game of all time. I feel like that title, I think my top 3 games of all time from personal enjoyment are probably Until Dawn, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and Pokemon Black 2. I think these 3 games are definitely the games I spent most amount of time with over the years and just generally enjoyed the most myself. So, you know, it's still crazy to me that despite having never played this game due to never owning a PlayStation, it's still, you know, I wouldn't say influenced me that much, but like really, you know, entertained me and excited me so many times throughout the past years, right? Yeah, this was a fantastic trip down memory lane and seeing things I've mentioned I've never seen before and hearing how things came together. Fantastic video once again. Big credit to Medan Muscles. Instant subscription from me. I'm excited to check out more from him. Maybe we'll film together 1 point or just for myself. I hope you enjoyed this little lean back chill reaction video, okay? Yeah, different type of reaction video, definitely, you know, more of a calm video, right? Nothing too crazy. But I'll be enjoying my thoughts, you know, leave me your thoughts on the video down below in the comments as well. What did you know about this? Did you even know about all of this as well? Tell me all about it. Leave a like if you enjoyed the reaction, and as always, if you enjoy what I'm doing, if you want to support me, leave a sub as well. A lot. Again, this weekend, I will be giving you my next edited Supermassive Games video, where we will be ranking the top 10 best moments, or like at least my personal favorite moments across all the games, right? So the best scenes, the most iconic, most memorable, and all that type of stuff. And generally, once again, such a huge list of videos I still have left, and obviously lots of other stuff, so tune in for it. It would be very much appreciated. Other than that, stay safe, have been happy. Thank you guys for watching, and see you again soon.